So this is where they break out the securities for us. Think of security as just investments. So row 11 and row 12, you can see that they have about 62 million, 63 million, I guess, in investments. So said probably some kind of stock or bond portfolio. And nothing wrong with that. To me, it seems high because Turning Point is such a cash cow. Like, is there really going to be a year where all of a sudden they only got 10 million in revenue? They were clear on what this group is. It manages the endowment. Then why do they have an occupancy? And the column next to it is where I mistakenly pulled in prior years.
See? So you were actually right that they did get a second salary, it just wasn't the numbers that we thought.
Correct.
Because the wrong person, and by the wrong person I mean a donor, can look at this, can view this video, could view this document themselves, and they'll look at this 990 form and say, you almost make me believe I'm donating my money. You're placing it into your endowment. You're growing those dollars, and then you're taking those dollars back out and sending it back to yourself to use for whatever reason you want.
Richard Norman has received the most insane money I've ever seen from like the entire swamp for like DC consulting. They just copy and paste from one of the ones, and they just get like, this would take 30 seconds to just write an explanation in there.
Oh yeah, Didi got a podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of Didi Got a Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Didi. Working hard, man. Working hard. If you've been following this channel over the past couple of weeks, then you should have probably already watched the interview that I gave to Brian, the TPUSA auditor. If you have yet to check that video out, I would highly recommend that you watch that video before you watch this one, because it will help make a lot more sense, some of the things that we're going to be talking about. And when I say working hard, man, in that video and since that video, we've talked about or spoken about some missing IRS 990 forms that TPUSA had yet to file. Well, they have since become public, and Brian and I quickly jumped on this. It's not as extensive as his last audit, but however, this is Brian giving you all his thoughts, just skimming over it. And we're going to be addressing the questions on if we think money laundering, fraud, if we think these things are taking place, anything illegal. So yeah, so hit the like button on your way in. I don't want to waste too much time. And without further ado, let's get into it. All right, everybody. So as a reminder, we spoke just a few days ago about some missing 990 forms from Turning Point USA. Most of you will be familiar with this, and some of you will not be. But it'll make a little bit more sense as we talk about it. And we just wanted, this video won't be too long, but we want to sort of address the files, why they were filed so late, and sort of how these files either confirm or maybe even reject some of the suspicions that Brian and I had once we went over Brian's initial audit that I mentioned at the very beginning of this video. So with that, Brian's going to address just a couple of things, and then we're going to hop into the missing 990 forms that everybody's been talking about. So yeah.
Thank you. So real quick, for the first time the other day, I went through some of the comments from the first two videos, and it's definitely overwhelming for me in a positive way. So just want to let the audience know I really appreciate that. And the more you guys do that, the more that motivates me to look into this stuff. If I'm tired on a Friday night, it's going to motivate me to spend an extra hour researching and trying to figure all this out. It even motivates me to come on here more often than maybe I initially thought. I had no idea the impact that was making. I just did the video, went to bed, and and looking back now, it's just it's really amazing to get that kind of support. So I wanted to thank everyone, and I would say please continue with those comments. And then I wanted to address maybe where I was getting blasted a bit, and I think it was deserved. My reaction to Candace Owens talking about watching my video, I'm not going to lie, gave me an internal panic attack. And I have nothing against Candace. It could have been John Smith, but because it's the biggest show on the internet, I just freaked out. And I agree with getting blasted because I tried to rewatch the clip and I'm laughing because I couldn't. I cringed so bad at watching it. I X'd it like within the first 20 seconds. So to anyone blasting me, it's fair. Like, I really do think I should not have reacted that way. And you guys got to understand, man, I'm only on here twice and I'm not looking for that kind of attention. And it's very scary. And it would still be scary if you told me right now she's doing it now. I would have a similar, I'm sorry to say, but I would have a similar my heart coming through my shirt, because it's just not what I'm looking for. I want to be exclusive. I also turned down all interview requests, and nothing.
Tim Pool invited you on.
I didn't know if we're allowed to. Should we be saying that, or?
Yeah.
Oh, I just didn't know if anything's. I don't know how this industry works. Like, if that's like a
that's fine.
Thing. Okay, I won't say the other ones just because I don't know if anyone wants it out there. But I received a number of requests, and I respectfully declined them all. One, when you have a work schedule, I don't know when I'd be able to do these. Like during the day, I can't jump on. And I like this channel. I'm comfortable with the size of it. I prefer to just be exclusive here. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. And again, thank you to everyone. Thank you for ripping me on Candace. Deserve it. And,
Well, Brian,
and you're laughing, so you must agree with the audience.
Yeah, well, no, it's not that. It's just I got a little bit of flack as well. I don't know if you saw it, but people in the comment section was actually saying, not a lot of people, but some people were saying, "Oh, D is seems to be so flattered that Candace mentioned him, and all he's concerned about is getting on the show." I've already addressed it in the comment section, but I do want to address that here. You all have to understand, my number one goal in this channel is to spread truth and to seek truth. And it's called strategy, right? And so if we can get on the number one podcast, if we're featured on the number one podcast in the world, first and foremost, you all have to understand that's an incredible opportunity to spread the truth that Candace Owens may not share or maybe cannot share. We can share those truths that she don't talk about on her channel. But secondly, but probably most importantly, people don't understand that being featured on a platform the size of Candace Owens comes with a lot of danger. It's not necessarily, you all see it as clout, but that's dangerous because now a lot more eyes are on my show. I'm a lot more scrutinized, right? And so I want you all to understand that no, my sole focus isn't that. It's always great to have your work recognized, right? To see that other people appreciate it. And in this case, it would be Brian's work, but it was just featured on my channel. But it's kind of important that we recognize that truth is being spread, regardless of who's spreading it. So I want to just make sure that we get that out the way. And because I know a few people were saying that. And to address what you just said, Brian, do I agree with the audience? Do I believe that you overreacted? No, I told you on camera, and I'm going to tell you again, I think you had every right to make sure that you cleared it up. I mean, if somebody's talking about your work and it's a person like Candace Owens, you don't know what she's going to do with that information, which, by the way, she said that she was going to share it on her show. She had to do it. And like I said, I reached out and I said, you can breathe. She hasn't shared it. And at this point, she may not share it. And maybe that's a blessing in disguise because, like I said, it's kind of dangerous.
I mean, I have
can be kind of dangerous,
They may see the Candace show, right? How do you explain that? And even if it's positive, see, that's what I want to make clear. I wasn't scared of her ripping me. Press is press. Yeah. If she praises me, it's as scary as if she rips me, because it's just the idea that now you've got people you sit next to, you've got maybe, what if your boss eat? Like, it's not something you want. I assure you guys, when you're not trying to become a creator, this is just not the attention. And I feel bad for you, Didi. We're like this is like goes against what you are a creator. Right. So it feels very selfish for me rooting against that, so I am in a weird position because for the team, I'm rooting for her to show it. No, but for me selfishly, it's like, this is scary. So
for sure. No, I get it.
Okay. I think we're good to start, right?
Yep.
Okay. So I wasn't sure if we're going to pull up. Did you have a specific one you want to start with?
I have all three pulled up. So whichever one you start with is totally fine. I'll just pull it up. I have Turning Point Action right here in front of me.
Let's start there then. That's fine.
Okay. That works.
It's not that serious. Which one?
All right.
Okay. So we'll hit some of the general stuff here just to make it make sense.
Okay.
So it says ending in fiscal year June 2024. But last time we saw with one of them, and I think Wolves might have called it out about the 0 employees. If you scroll down, you'll see what I was talking about when I tried to explain that. Maybe it might be a little more down. Sorry.
Right here.
Yeah, you see it says calendar year for when they tell you how many employees. Do you see that, row 5? Total number of individuals employed in calendar year. So the reason why the last time it showed 0, calendar year was 2022, but their reporting goes into June of 2023. That makes sense?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's why now you see they did bring in employees. So to me, there's nothing nefarious about that. They most likely hired these employees between January and June.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so they have 64 employees, I think, costing $4.3 million. If we read that right, the right column is current year and the left column is prior year.
Yes, right here.
Yep. So to me, that looks totally fine. You're allowed to hire.
But I do want to ask you this. So am I reading this correctly? It's showing that there was in 2023, there was $10.7 million in contributions and grants. Am I reading that correctly?
You're reading this right, because this is in my notes as well that I was going to say. This feels like a significant jump.
It went up to 27 million. It jumped 17 million in 1 year. I would be curious to know what the prior year was. Yes, is there anything necessarily nefarious about it jumping? No, but if you only have 10 million in 1 year, and then the next year, the amount that it jumps to, that number itself is bigger than the overall number that you had altogether. That being 17 million is the number, it increased by.
And
that's crazy.
And keep in mind, this isn't TP USA.
This is the subsidiary 501c4.
Who's even heard of this, right? Like if you have a friend that donates to Turning Point, are they donating to Turning Point Action?
Right.
No, right? Because no one even knows about this.
And just to be clear, is it possible that some of these dollars that we're seeing, is it the way that it will be filed? Could some of these dollars be coming from Turning Point USA, and it's just considered in the contributions and grants column, or would that go somewhere else? Like how they do it?
That's a great question. So we showed in the other video, and off the top of my head, I can't remember which group was receiving it, but if you remember, Turning Point donated to some of the satellites.
Right.
Remember the endowment?
Yep.
And I don't remember the amount. That's why I don't want to guess at it, but they gave a significant amount to Turning Point Endowment, and that's why Turning Point Endowment's contribution was up from the year prior, because they got more from TPUSA. So that could be going on here, which again, not illegal, but isn't it a way to circumvent, like we talked about, potential, not saying they did, but dark money?
Right.
Because if TPUSA can't give political money, well, then they'll just donate to the group that can, right? Why else would they donate to them?
Right.
Maybe there's a better reason. The problem is they don't release annual reports to tell us why. Their website should have an annual impact report that tells us why they did what they did. You're making me speculate, which I don't like, because then I get in trouble, but you're forcing me to.
Right. And I also saw down here, like when you look at, where is it at? When it describes
such a word salad.
The mission to promote social welfare through raising awareness about free markets and capitalism, initiating civic action amongst the younger generation, and educating youth in order to be a resource for free market. This sounds like word salad.
It's a corporate word salad, right? Some marketing guy wrote that. I don't think
it's like, what does this mean? Like, okay, I read it. You're conservative, free markets, capitalism, but what does this actually mean? What are you doing?
And I have another problem with this. So they received 27 million, as we saw this year.
Yep.
Now that's a lot of money. How do we quantify if they measured up to what you just read? What's the metric on that? In business, you hear the word KPI, right? Key performance.
Yep.
How can we have that? What tangible thing can I look at to say, oh man, they really supported this mission with the 27 million? Again, back to what I said, where's the annual report on their website? You have all these high-priced executives. No one can do that. All these guys, Tyler Boyd, all these guys making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. They can't spend 10 minutes putting a report for us.
Yes, and that actually reminds me. So we were speaking about comments earlier under our videos. So someone else commented. They said, Brian, I love and I respect that you addressed and you got ahead of this, and you just, you already addressed the fact that you may have misspoke, but you corrected it and you kept it moving. That makes you seem more genuine. However, whether Charlie Kirk was making $400,000, $500,000, or $1.6 million, it doesn't matter, because it still doesn't explain that being a $500,000 annual salary will not explain 3 different mansions or houses across the country. One of them being like this super expensive beachfront nice home. They said a $500,000 salary probably won't explain how he's able to afford that. And I thought that was pretty interesting as well, because I didn't even consider it. I was like, oh, that's right. Because no matter what the taxes say, he still was living like he was making millions of dollars,
And that was what I kind of said in my defense. If you remember, I go, most of these guys make zero. And that the Bill Gates Foundation, the Clintons, they're not paying themselves typically 400. So does that mean, oh, well, let's not look at the foundation? Like, if anything, that's one of the lowest parts of the story, is the salary of the person running it. It just is. Like, whether he made 100,000, $1 million, because it doesn't change anything.
Right.
If you were to rank the things that are the most egregious, in my eyes, that's like number 10. Right. Well, what we're about to show today is far more egregious than his salary. And so it's not a defense. It's just reality. Like, the salary is not a big deal. So we hit the main thing, right? To jump from 10 million to 27 is a big deal. Should we show the date real quick to scroll back up? Because we see, oh, I'm sorry. It's actually below. I should have said where it says signature block. Right so here. If you look right here, Didi, you see right there on the, it says 5/14/2025.
So what does this mean for those that won't understand?
So Tom, and forgive me, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Let's say
Tyler Boyer, or Tom somebody else?
No, the guy right here, Tom Sadeka. He's
okay.
So you see above where it says sign here?
Yes.
That's what I'm getting. So Tom is a Turning Point treasurer. He signed this based on here on 5/14. So what happened next, I don't know.
So does this mean, Brian, that the date that we're looking at, May 14th, 2025, if the officer signed off on this, then that means they've already had these numbers and this report confirmed by an auditor, and that it was good to go, as in other words, it was good to be filed?
And the reason why I'm going to answer yes is because notice the date right below it. You see right below there's another date. What did the auditor put in?
The same date.
The same date. So doesn't that tell me yes? Because if the
Yes.
auditor is now saying 5/14, and there's that tells me yes, they've reviewed this, or right? That's how I
Right.
would interpret this.
So we're 6 months later and it's just now being filed, which by the way, after listening to Candace the other day, I understand that there was an extension filed where you could, the new deadline was November the 15th.
Yeah. So you never know. Maybe something happened internally we don't know about. Maybe there was a turnover in their finance department and they made a request, right, based on that, and that gave them an extension. Like none of this is illegal.
All right.
It's just simply worth questioning as to what took so long. And there could be a very good reason, but it is worth asking the question so then we can get the answer.
Right.
That's why I'm asking these questions. It's not because I think they did anything. It's just if this says 5/14, just what happened? Was there a delay in the system? Maybe they did file it. Maybe they actually filed it on 5/15, and for whatever reason, the IRS delayed posting it, right? That could be. Like these are, all possibilities. But none of these people talk. So the issue is we don't know anything.
Right.
We don't hear it from anyone. We don't get any reports. We get gaslit for asking these questions, which is frustrating because just give an answer. I mean, I just gave you possibilities. Maybe you did file it.
Right. But they've been this way, like we talked about before, with everything.
With everything.
Right? Like simply, providing their call log, that being the amazing, magnificent Mikey McCoy. He hasn't even provided his call log to just, shoot down the rumors. All the talk about him online, they're constantly, they posted earlier today from Turning Point Faith and Turning Point Actions Twitter account, and they're just getting shredded in the comments. People have all these questions about their finances. People are still asking about the audit that they saw from you, Brian. People are still on Twitter as of this morning. I checked, still asking questions about the finances. How did you go from this number to that number? Can you explain this salary? Why is it that we don't know? How do we quantify if you were able to, live up to the standard of what your mission statement says, but there's no way to tell, Yeah. And for those of you who are going to say you all are being overly, you're scrutinizing Turning Point USA way too much. This stuff is not important, but it kind of is, because if Charlie Kirk thought it was important enough to request a Doge style audit, and that audit, to my understanding, is no longer happening, then I think it's kind of important, and it's only fair that we question these, in my opinion, absurd numbers and how just the math does not seem to math,
And I want to say one thing, it's going to be very eye-opening. I won't say the name of the organization, but it has nothing to do with Turning Point. It's a whole different industry. We may be doing a potential future video on another nonprofit. They're as transparent as anyone. You're not going to see me speculate on anything in this video. They have yearly reports. They line item things. They show all their audits. They show everything. All these little questions, we're not going to ask any of those. And so we have precedent. Right? If they can do that, why can't these guys do that?
Right. Especially when you're talking about these type of numbers. The other organization that you're talking about, would you say that they're playing with numbers like $10.7 million in grants and contributions and $27 million, or would you say that it's smaller?
Bigger.
Wow.
Bigger. But what's funny about them is they have way more to hide, the other organization, and they don't hide any of it, because what they're doing is far worse in terms of not money laundering, but the actual activity of how the money's being used, and they don't hide any of it. Right. Like I said, they break it down. They tell you, here's why we're doing it. Here's why we need this many employees. They give you everything. It's actually amazing from an auditing perspective. So I feel like when you contrast that to this, then it's going to make this even more eye-opening that we're not just scrutinizing. Like just to scrutinize. We're not. Right. We're asking for very basic things. And so probably next thing, we can just keep strolling. Maybe I'll stop you where it's worth is we have, is it here? They say how much, right here. So you had read it, but look how much they're spending on this, 19.39 million, right? From their own words on this word salad.
They've spent almost $20 million on their mission.
Yeah. So we have to take them at their word.
In 1 year?
I'm assuming so. I mean, I hate to assume, but yeah, like I said, all we can do is take them at their word. Right? Because as you see here, it says expenses 19.3, and then they're explaining it.
Let me go to the top. Does it show that up here anywhere?
Their total expenses this year were, what was it, 21? Yeah, total expenses, line 18, was 21 million. 21.3.
Sheesh.
So they spent everything, right? Just about. Remember, this
and as a reminder, this is the 501c4. This is the subsidiary. Yeah. This isn't even the big dog, as they would say.
Yeah.
Sheesh. And there's no way for us to know how they spent it?
A little bit, they tell us, right? Like we had here. They're telling us that word salad.
Right.
and then we're going to show other ways they spent it, salaries, independent contractors. So we're going to try and figure it out. But this, I'm saying, just gives us an idea. This People's Convention, 600 community events, they're mobilizing 6,000 volunteers. So that's them telling you. Since we don't get an annual report, this is their version of that. You know what I mean? This is their version of, all right, well, we'll throw you some breadcrumbs. We'll tell you a little bit of what we do. But also, none of that can be vetted. Not that I'm saying they're lying, but I'm just saying none of it can be.
We just have to take their word for it.
Yeah, how would we know? We would never know. So,
right.
And we'll keep going down a little more. We have a few more things. You can probably go a little faster through here. Let's keep going. And so soon we'll get to the expense line items. Oh, so here we have the salaries. Okay, before you laugh at me and make fun of me, this is not a mistake. If we scroll up a little more, just to make sure we have the headings right, you see in D, reportable compensation from the organization. This is not the related organization. This is this organization, right? It's very clear. So Tyler Boyer and Charlie Kirk did, in fact, get a second salary. It says it right here, $100,000 for 20 hours, and Charlie got 10 hours for $99,000. And the column next to it is where I mistakenly pulled in prior years. See?
So you were actually right that they did get a second salary, just wasn't the numbers that we thought.
Correct. Yep.
Oh, wow.
See, right? How can you be? It's very clear. Column D that you have highlighted.
And this is from related or okay.
So that's the TPUSA salary is what that column's saying.
So an estimated amount of other compensation from organization.
That's kind of irrelevant.
Okay, that's irrelevant with those numbers, yeah.
So this and
how is Tyler Boyer getting paid more than Charlie Kirk in Turning Point Action?
Well, because he worked more hours. He logs 20 hours a week. Charlie logs 10.
Okay.
But I would say that is a bit high for 10 hours a week, 99,000. I know we're going to get in trouble.
But it's his organization. He can pay him what he wants.
That is true.
So they're going to nitpick with that one. They're going to say, no, you can't decide for him. It's his organization. He's putting in the work. He gets to decide.
No doubt. I would just like to know what he did. And I don't think that's unreasonable.
Right.
Because that was my whole thing I harped on in the first video when I thought he was getting these multiple salaries. That's fine. He can pay himself, but what did he do? How did he contribute in these 10 hours?
And for those of you that are going to get Brian pushback for that, it's important because remember, people are donating. People are donating, and this is a tax-exempt organization, so people are donating, so they have every right to know.
Yeah, that's the only reason why. If you're private, again, why would I care if he gave himself $100 million? You're a private company, it doesn't matter, but that's not the case. And so also when he comes across very charitable, it's like, well, wait, is it charitable to himself? And that's why it's worth asking, just because it's like, wow, man, for 10 hours a week, people I know that get 99 are working 90 hours a week, 70 hours a week, like hustling hard for that 99K, not 10 hours.
Right.
Now,
what is it with these two? Explain to me the difference between these two numbers. There's 10 here, so that's per week. And is it 41 for, what does 41 mean?
So typically what this means, and I don't think it's a mistake here, this feels accurate, 41 for the related organization.
Okay.
Right. So what it's saying
he's logging 41 for Turning Point USA, 10 for Turning Point Action.
Correct.
Okay, that does make sense because there's a second salary shown here.
So same with Tyler. So Tyler's doing 30 hours at the other org and then 20 with here. So that's 50 right there, right? Busy week.
Right.
Okay. So I think that covers that on the salaries.
So hold on. Let me ask you something. So remember, we thought it was 3 salaries before for the American. Well, never mind. I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll get there. I was getting ahead of myself and talking about the endowment, but we're going to talk about that here in a moment.
Let's scroll down to independent contractors. It'll be coming up shortly. Oh, right here. Okay. So let's make sure we're very clear. By the way, it's also great doing it this way because anyone else who's watching can just pull up the exact same 990, and they can look for themselves. So the way we think of independent contractor, I mean, the word independent is literally in the title. So in theory, they're independent of this nonprofit. They're our separate entity that's treated as a vendor. So to define a vendor as someone that's done services for the nonprofit. Okay. And what do we first see here? 110. If you remember, I covered 110 in the first video. That's Jake Hoffman. I don't want to say because I don't have his dollar amount in front of me, but it was in the millions when we added up all the money. And now we have 469,000 for something that we can't measure.
Social digital media ad placements too. Sheesh.
And for someone wondering, is this Jake Hoffman? Google yourself and you'll find, I don't know if Diddy has plans on showing it because there's other, but you have information right on there that ties it. So this is not me speculating. We have to go by state websites. Now, could there be another Jake Hoffman? I guess it's possible that there's 2 and 1, I have no idea. We can only report what's out there. So that's what's out there. There's a Jake Hoffman registered to this company. And to recap, Jake Hoffman in 2018 became, let me make sure I have it right, the communications director for Turning Point.
That's right.
So that's an insider. So if this says independent, is he independent?
So that means he was receiving this absurd amount of money for as an independent contractor, but he was also receiving a salary as an employee.
Yeah, which we showed in the first video.
That's right.
When we went through that. And if anyone wants to double check, again, go to ProPublica and just look through any of Turning Point's 990s and just do a control find for his name. You know, I don't remember which ones he was on, but you know, he was named that. And even if he's not on them, we still know from Turning Point's own website, he was the advanced, what did I say it was? Communications director or something. Yep. So he's with the company. Why isn't it just that salary? Maybe there's a good explanation for this.
Right.
I don't know. And let's say he has 20 employees and they're working around the clock to do all this social media for Turning Point. I don't like it, but okay, that's a little better. We don't even have evidence of that, right? We don't. Where's the website?
I was just going to say, I don't remember if there was a website for this one either.
If there is, it may have been made recently. I mean, we could even look up on the fly, but I don't remember. I'll type it in. I don't remember any of these having good websites. Yeah. Which again, you would think only because
110 LLC.
It's funny when you put them in instead of a company website, you get what I had showed you, which is the state website showing that a Jake Hoffman is registered. First, we shouldn't have to look this hard for a website, should we?
Right.
Like I'm already on page 2 of Google. Why do I have to look that hard? And by the way, you're an advertising guy and you can't figure out how to get your website on page 1 of Google? How good are you if I can't find your website on the first page?
I wasn't able to find it. Were you able to pull it up?
His website?
Yeah.
No, but again, I didn't keep looking. On the first few pages, I don't see it. But maybe on page 25 of Google, it's there. You know, I don't know. But I'm just saying, like, typing in 110, it doesn't come up.
Right. I don't see it.
Again, if your job...
If you're being paid all this money, you're right. To your point.
Sorry.
It should come up. If Turning Point thinks you're so important, more than Google and all these other ad agencies, you should be able to be one of the top creme de la cremes of ad agencies.
I don't think that's that much to expect.
Right.
And so another thing I would say, and again, to be clear, we're not telling them how to spend their money. What do you think is better for advertisement? When Charlie Kirk goes on Fox News and the entire lower third says what? Turning Point USA or whatever this guy's doing for $469,000?
Probably Fox.
Yeah, so why would you even need this?
Right.
If he never got this, what, no one would ever hear of Turning Point? You hear of Turning Point from Twitter, from Fox News, from Newsmax, from all the shorts that you see, right? The TikTok, like right. Facebook even goes viral on, but there could be something I'm overlooking. I just find this to be like, man.
Do we know? And let me see if I can pull it up in another, because I don't have the document here in front of me, your original audit, but I'm curious if 110 had other clients, because I know that was another theme from the first video we did. A lot of these people don't seem to have other clients. It seems to be exclusively Turning Point USA.
So on 110, I found one other client, and it wasn't through the nonprofit. It was through the PACs. And all it was another Arizona state swamp person who was within the Turning Point orbit. I just don't remember the name. You know what I mean? Like some state senator, like something like that.
Right.
But how can you get clients if no one has your website?
Right.
So, you know, I just don't know. Like 469, is he maybe like managing the Google ads and somehow he's like, could he be fronting? It just that there could be an explanation. That's a lot of money, though.
It is.
For a company that I just don't think needs at this point this much advertising.
As a reminder, this is for Turning Point Action.
True. So it's funny.
This is not even for Turning Point USA. And most people don't even know about Turning Point Action. That makes this number that much more egregious. 100%.
I can't believe it. You made a point that it totally my mind because of the amount. My mind was thinking Turning Point USA. So now it's even worse because why would Turning Point Action need $469K for ads?
Yeah, but look at this right under this. Active engagement, digital education, and fun. Digital education? What does it mean?
Okay, so
$429,000.
Active engagement is in my paper, but the reason why we never talked about them is only because they're not an insider. So if it's okay with you, I'll give you quickly who Active Engagement is.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. Active Engagement is a consulting company founded by this guy, Richard Norman. And Richard Norman has received the most insane money I've ever seen from like the entire swamp for like DC consulting. Almost 50 years he's been doing this. His specialty is helping nonprofits, you're going to love this, raise more money.
Oh my gosh. He gets paid a lot of money to help nonprofits make more money.
According to his website. I'm only going by that. That's the byline from his website.
What's his name?
Richard Norman.
Richard Norman. I remember seeing that name.
Yeah. And so And it's not just Turning Point. Like I said, this company is getting a lot of money. So they're all active engagement is an interesting location, right? That Northern Virginia area, that's the DC hub, like Arlington or Leesburg, that whole area. So clearly you're like probably within that orbit if you're, out of that area. But we
So
don't know. We don't know like what's the market value of this. Like maybe you could shop around and get digital education for less, can't you?
yeah, but okay, this isn't the one that makes the most sense to me. Maybe is going to be Mosaic Event Productions because it's event stages, lighting, video production, and so that can be expensive. I don't know if it equals this number, but it is Charlie Kirk's organization. You just never know. And again, it's Turning Point Action. But what I've noticed with all these organizations, it's all social media and communications related. So it's not even just a big deal that 110 is paid almost $500,000 by themselves. Active engagement is paid almost 450,000 by themselves. But you have two other organizations, or you have Olympic Media, communications and fundraising consultant, 423,000, 228,000 for advertising, promotion, and fundraising.
So I have a few thoughts on this one.
What?
Yeah. And so as someone that's been going through nonprofits for a long time, the most common thing you see is consulting and advertising. And my belief is, and it's only a belief, because there's no market value to it. So you can't measure it.
All right.
Not saying anyone did this, but if you want to hook up your friend, you can put any price at it, right? But to my point in the first video, what if he makes hats? Then you can't say $1 million because people can do quick math and be like, well, wait, it's not going to cost $1 million to make 10,000 hats. But what's it going to cost for consulting?
Right. I actually can confirm that. And I'm not talking about speculation. I've worked in the nonprofit world. I try not to speak on things as if I'm a professional if I'm not. This I can confirm. I was actually, when I got my master's degree in 2022, I started working for this really big nonprofit that I can't name for legal reasons. But while I was working there, one of the individuals that we funded was a quote unquote consultant. He actually got his master's degree from the same school I went to. So we had a one-on-one call one day, and he was asking me what my long-term goal was, and I didn't know at the time. And so he said, you should really consider going into consulting. And at that point, my only perception of consultants was you have to be an expert in something, you have to have some sort of value to offer, and then you have to deliver on that. Listen, bro, I'm 23 years old at the time. I'm like, I'm no expert in anything. He said, no, you don't understand how this works. He said, you can be a consultant. Didi, what I'm about to tell you, you won't believe me, but it's the truth. You can be a consultant for anything. He said, so if you've experienced something or if you've worked at a place, just call yourself a consultant. Do it for 2 or 3 years. Not right away, but do it for 2 or 3 years and then start your own consulting firm. I'm saying, I hear the word firm. I'm freaking out. What do you mean firm? He said, it's not as complicated as you think. You'd be surprised. Some random organization on the other side of the country, they don't know if you're really good or not. You build up a website, you got the right connections, the right reputation, just sound like you know what you're talking about. You add consulting in any title of what it is that you do, and you'll get yourself in the room with the right people, and all you need is like 3 or 4 clients. You'll be making $300,000-$400,000 a year, which makes these numbers stand out even more to me when you're making $228,000 at one time, $429,000. That's absurd. And that's just one client, people.
Right. So I have 2 things to add that may blow people's mind. This isn't just in the nonprofit. In the Fortune 500 companies, this is even bigger because that money is so minuscule, right? If you're a multi-billion-dollar company, you can have your neighbor set up an LLC and give them some contract to say, oh, we're helping with marketing. Here's 50 grand. You think that's getting caught? That never gets, and that goes on. And you see people's wives and girlfriends starting up these LLCs, and they get just enough money to stay under the radar because, yeah, if you're a massive company, that's not getting caught. Just people at high levels are not looking at $30,000, $50,000 bills, even $100,000 bill. Also in landscaping, it's bad. You should see some of these prices. Oh, some landscaper comes to mow the lawn. I was about to say 100 million. I'm exaggerating, but it's some insane number for the year when he just comes to mow the lawn. No one's looking at that.
Yeah.
So it's not a nonprofit thing. And this is why, we have these class divides. The workers are the peasants. And then everyone in this thing has the yacht, has the summer house. They didn't get it on merit. Okay. In most cases, there's always exceptions, but generally it's not a merit-based thing. They weren't the best worker. They're getting hooked up.
Right.
And I'm just generalizing. Okay. Now back to what you said about the amounts. After active engagement, we have Olympic Media. To me, this one's so egregious because this isn't even the company's name anymore. and no one has even cared to put in the new name. Olympic
Oh.
Media was Ryan Coyne, who we covered in the
Oh
first
yeah,
video.
yeah.
He was involved in the Parlor thing.
Yeah.
And so last I saw, the company's name was, I think, changed to Starboard, I believe. Let me double check on that, because I'm really scared of
Right. Let's fact check that in real time.
yeah. And so based on the website I found, and like I said, maybe he changed it back, his company became Starboard in 2022. And I'm quoting from the website: Starboard provides unparalleled expertise in navigating U.S. policy, regulations, and global opportunities.
What does that mean? More word salad. But from their website, are you able to see other clients? Just curious.
Oh, this guy's massive.
Okay.
This guy, but not from the website. I saw the clients from the FEC filings. So that's how I caught him. I just went into fec.gov and I put in his company. And then I just saw, I just couldn't believe it. I was like getting hypnotized by how much money this company was getting from all the DC creatures.
That's crazy.
And anyone can do it. So again, fec.gov, everything gets filed. That doesn't mean he didn't do anything. I'm not suggesting that. All I'm saying is, I don't know. It's interesting when someone's that getting that many contracts, because there's only so many hours in the day. Like I always go back to. So how do you have the time to like? I wouldn't want that many contracts, because I would be worried I can't fulfill, what I've agreed upon doing. If anyone's on here right now, please pull up their website. It reminds me a bit of, remember when we did Why Refi?
Yeah.
It's not impressive to me. Maybe I'm too hard of a judge, but Starboard.
No, it wasn't impressive to me either.
Yeah. So starboard.co. Anyone who's listening can just go to the website. And so he got another 423,000, which, man, I don't know. It's like Turning Point's spending a lot on
essentially marketing and advertising.
Things we can't measure. Yeah.
Right.
And then Didi, the last one, Blue Mountain Strategies. That's worth mentioning, because that is another, let me just pull up quick so we don't say it wrong. In 2018, Joshua Thifault was named Advanced Field Rep, earning a salary of $140,710. Additionally, he started an LLC called Blue Mountain Strategies. And again, it's another horrific looking website. I don't even know how this is a website. To me, this is insane. Maybe I'm from a different world, but anytime in my world you start a business that has a website, you're really sweating. You know what I mean? Like, is this a good website? Is this clear on what we do? And you tell me. I don't. And they've gotten, a bunch of money over the years. So that's Joshua Thifault, Blue Mountain Strategies, and he was the Advanced Field Rep.
So let me see if I pull it up. Blue Mountain
Strategies.
Let me see if I can pull that up real fast. Is this it here?
Yeah. I don't know. Am I too harsh?
Oh my gosh. No, man. That's it?
I don't know. That's Blue Mountain Strategies. I don't know what else to like.
Dude, are y'all seeing this? There's nowhere to click for like, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's very suspicious. That's just contact us.
You see now why my red flags go off. Why Refi? What did we show? Garbage website.
Something very similar.
This garbage website, Starboard, that I just told you about, .co. How can this be? You got how much from Turning Point? You can't design a website? You can't take 1% out of this to make a website? How is that too much to ask?
Crazy. Okay. Is there anything else from this document we want to cover?
Yeah, I'm just pulling up my notes. Yes, we want to scroll. It's going to be maybe 3/4 down once we start to get to the fundraising. Oh, is there anything here real quick? Let's just look at their expenses so people can see when we're talking about just how much money. So we have grants. We can scroll down a little more. Just see if anything jumps out. This is their expense sheet. If anyone,
3.66 million in salaries and wages, total expenses. So what's the difference between 3.6 and then where you got 3.5 under program service expenses? Is that
they're breaking it out. So I go by column A. Column A is the total.
Okay,
or just to make the math simple, I
okay.
stick with column A. And remember, it's not 3.6 because of benefits. Everything was, I think, 4.3.
Right.
So they spend a lot on travel. Look at line 17.
Yes, and they spent a lot on conferences, conventions, and how do you spend $7.7 million for Turning Point Action? And most people don't even know about this. So that makes no sense to me.
I mean, only thing I'll say in their defense is they do claim they do all these events. I just don't know. It doesn't mean they don't. I'm just not aware of, like, I've never seen
$7 million though. There's on a high end of $7 million, almost $8 million in conference and conventions for Turning Point Action.
And you know what it could be? Maybe
that's weird.
Maybe it's just a glorified fundraiser.
Yeah.
Right. Where the heavy hitters show up, they write a check. And I have no idea because they don't tell us. But yeah, that's what they're spending. I think that's probably it. So to me, the travel is a little high for
600,000 for travel.
I know they travel first class, but is that like, how expensive is the private jet? I think Trump flies for cheaper than that.
I'm not so sure if even the people here will be flying on private jet though, right? This is Turning Point Action. These are a lot of young people.
So maybe Tyler, but
So maybe Tyler, but that will probably be him and
Yeah.
Charlie. Outside of them, I just don't know how many of them are flying on private jets.
645. Oh, and then the other one that is a little high, but for a smaller company, look at their IT bill. I believe that's 851. You see row 14?
Oh yeah. Ooh, sheesh.
Maybe
Crazy.
they have powerful servers,
Yeah, like I'm no expert in some of these categories, so maybe these things cost this much. But as a regular, as y'all corrected me in the comment section, not Smo Joe, but a regular Joe Schmo, this is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and no doubt these things cost money. No one would ever try and tell you, oh, IT is cheap. IT is outrageous. But at some point, ask yourself, man, is it worth for my small company spending 851 on IT? The direct job, isn't that?
Right, but almost $1 million, 800,000 in office expenses.
That's a lot.
Dude, what?
That's a lot.
Once again, not from Turning Point USA, people. This is the smaller one. You spent $800,000 on office expenses. What would have to whatever that if this said 250,000, that would be more believable. But even then, depending on the organization, that's a stretch. That's a lot of money. 800,000 though. But okay.
In theory, wouldn't they just be in the TPUSA office, or is that crazy to speculate?
I thought about that.
Like, even though they're different companies, if I'm trying to be good with my money, wouldn't I just have one big business and then maybe the first floor is Turning Point Action, right? And then the second floor,
right?
I don't know. It just seems like, but again, I think there's better ways to use this kind of money.
I don't know if I told you this, but I actually interviewed with Turning Point Action earlier this year. Did I ever tell you that?
No, it's the first time hearing this.
I actually interviewed with Turning Point Action in like March of this year. And the people that interviewed me via email, the one that I was communicating with via email, were older women. But when it came to my interview process, which by the way, this was social media related, the position was. And once I got to the interview, it was 2 young people. So I shared this to say, the people that work there, y'all, are very, very young. These girls are like 22 years old, 22. And they were interviewing me for a position that was going to fall under their role, which I didn't know this going into the interview. And also the location they were in didn't look very expensive at all. But to be fair, that was one room. But I'm just saying, based on what I saw, I would be very shocked to then later hear that there's $800,000 in office expenses. So I'm gonna just leave that there.
Yeah, it's high, but we're only reporting the numbers, right? So at some point, we're just showing what's in this file,
right?
Okay, so now I think it's appropriate for what I said was fundraising. Mm-hmm. So we may have to scroll a little faster because I think it's more like 3/4 of the way to the bottom. No, this is just like related organizations. So we have to keep going. Should be coming up. Oh, right here. So we'll start slow. That way we can explain it. Because in the first video, we didn't get into this level of detail.
Okay.
And so let's try to walk through. That way we're crystal clear on what we're showing. First column, straightforward, name and address. So this is who was involved in the fundraiser. And this already gets a little tricky because I guess this can mean a number of things. Maybe they're the one that processed the payment. So let's say Didi shows up at a fundraiser, like a physical fundraiser. He writes out a check. You may write out a check to Blue Mountain, and then they take that check and put it in the Turning Point Bank. That's one option. And then there's other ways this can be done, maybe through a payment processor. So I don't know, maybe Blue Mountain has some kind of credit payment processor. So when you donate to Turning Point, they're the ones processing it. There's just a number of different ways. And why it's unclear is because, of course, we don't work there, so we don't know exactly. But the overarching way to think about it is they're involved in the fundraising. Maybe they solicited people, and now maybe they're getting a cut of that. Maybe they went knocking on doors, I guess, saying, hey, would you want to donate to Turning Point? And someone says, yeah, I'll give $10. Okay. We got the 10 and now we took our cut of the 10, so, and there could be even more scenarios I can't think of, but that's how you want to think of fundraising. And so if we go to column 4, gross receipts, that's literally gross receipts that were received from the fundraising in total. Then they break it out for us. So if you look at the next column, it's clear. Amount paid to or retained by fundraiser. That's Blue Mountain. And then the last column, amount paid to by the org. That's Turning Point.
So it's the clear, amount paid to Turning Point Action was 11.5, and the amount paid to Blue Mountain was 440.
Yeah. So Turning Point Action fundraised, if we make it a verb, 11.5. That's the net. That's the net of the 12. And then Blue Mountain got their strategy. And let's not forget who Blue Mountain was. That was the horrible website we looked at, Joshua Tyfolt, the insider.
Right.
Is this illegal? I'm pretty sure it isn't. But it's just like, man, if you're within the orbit, boy, do you make out pretty good, don't you?
Right.
Because this is an annual basis. This isn't even the total of every year. We're just looking at 1 year.
Yeesh.
And then same with Clover Stone. That was the Stacy Sheridan we talked about in the first video.
That's
She
right.
came on board in 2018. She also had an advanced title, Advanced Strategic Director, and then I think other titles like that. 178, as you can see, went to this group according to here. And then, Turning Point got their net. And then we have our friend John McGovern, who, for the highest paid employee, I would just love to know, like, what does this guy do?
Right. And I'm a bit confused with this guy because remember they said that he was 35. It was listed as 35, I believe, in the original audit.
Oh,
This
sorry.
person, either he's 35 and we looked at the wrong picture because Wolves and Finance was corrected about this by Candace. So was it the image of him that was wrong, or was it the information about him being 35 that was wrong? Because my understanding was that the image that was shown was not the right John McGovern.
Let me explain, because I can only speak to me, not Wolves of Finance.
Okay.
This was my finding. I couldn't find anything on him. So I went through, not phone books, like the equivalent of internet phone books, and I looked at, okay, if it says he's in Tempe, let me look for a John McGovern in that area. And I found one that was 34 or something. That's all I can say. I can't say that's this one. I can say I just couldn't find anything else other than that.
Makes sense.
And then I tried going through like old Turning Point websites, and I think I just found only one thing that said he was involved in like charitable gift giving. He was the director of that.
I see.
And that was it. And so, but again, like, he's also involved in this, even though it's only 65, it's just, don't know. And then we have our friends Active Engagement, who we talked about earlier,
Yep.
the Richard Norman. And then if you notice, Ryan Coyne was on here, Olympic Media.
Yeah.
So doing pretty good. And I think that's it for this group, unless you have any, now that we've gone through it, if you have any additional things that come to mind.
No additional things with this. I mean, it's overall just, those are really big numbers for me for a subsidiary like Turning Point Action organization. That, not that people got to know what an organization is or know about an organization's existence for them to do good numbers, as we know that that's not the case. But this is Charlie Kirk's organization. And most time when people heard about Turning Point USA, it was Turning Point USA. So I'm just surprised to see those numbers as big as they are.
Yeah. Sorry, I totally missed one thing. And if you have it pulled up still, we can do it. If not, I'll just say it.
No, I'll pull it up.
Okay. The donations. They gave 2 interesting donations, and that's somewhere usually near the bottom. It might be right here. We may have just passed it. So it actually worked out good. Yeah. Okay. So you actually could take us through this. What do you notice of who they donated to?
So Turning Point USA, are these the list of people that they donated to?
Yes, because if you look at the top, what does it say? It says grants and assistance to domestic organizations.
So Turning Point Action donated to Turning Point USA 1.4 million.
According to here, that's all we can go, but
And then look at these other numbers, substantially smaller numbers.
But you see who else they gave to? Look at row 3.
Turning Point PAC.
And what did we say about
the PAC are used for to be able to assist these politicians like a Donald Trump and local politicians, maybe even in Arizona, like some of the people that's affiliated with Turning Point USA.
So someone's probably going to get on us for this, but all we can do is read the title. It doesn't say grants from. It doesn't explain what. It's very clear. Grants to.
Yep.
And they even give why. Awareness of traditional values. So they're telling you why they had to give that money.
What does that mean? And it's the same for all of them.
Well, these guys are busy. They're working 50 hours a week. They don't have time to fill this out.
Right. That's absurd.
So I think we finished this one. I think that was the last thing I want to talk about. Actually, and just for anyone watching, the next 2 are going to be much quicker. We started with the largest.
So America's Turning Point?
Yeah, I think that's going to be 5-10 minutes, actually.
Okay, now we're going to pull up America's Turning Point. So let me go.
Perfect. So just like before, if you're fine with that approach, let's just take it from the top.
Okay.
Any items worth noting, I'll stop you and or even if you catch something, don't go by me.
Perfect.
So right there, what jumps out? Remember revenue? What are we seeing again here? 4.8, 8.5.
Almost doubled. Once again, almost doubled. And as a reminder, this is America's Turning Point, which is the endowment. This is one of the 2 endowments that Turning Point has.
Not really, because later, this is what they are. You just missed it. If you go down a little more, they're going to tell us what they are. So not this one is another one of these word salads, actually. A little more, please.
Oh,
right there.
Okay.
Educate students about fiscal responsibility, free markets, and capitalism.
So this isn't one of the endowments?
No, the endowment is literally called endowment. We'll cover that last. And
Okay.
that one is like 1 minute. So there's not much in that one.
Perfect.
Yeah. And so the revenue, big jump for a small group.
How many employees? 24 employees. And before, I can't remember. I don't know if they're, I believe this was one of the ones that didn't have any employees listed as well. before.
One of them, it was one of them. I can't remember if it was this one or the prior one, but as I suspected, I think it's just a timing lapse because of calendar year,
Yep.
because their fiscal year in their IRS form, but on this line, they're asked to answer it based on calendar year.
And it's
And
24.
so we have to be fair when it's fair. And to me, that's,
for sure.
they did nothing wrong. Well, one thing you notice, what do you see on row 19? They don't really manage their money that well, right? Look at the
So
prior.
they were in a loss
Yeah.
of negative 1.3 million revenue less. But what does that mean exactly? So they overspent? Is that what that means?
They overspent. Yeah. And some would defend that, saying, well, hey, see, they're not trying to enrich themselves. They're literally spending every dollar. So I believe it's just how you look at it. Because
Well, and also
challenge me and say,
right, but also wouldn't it be important for us to see later if they transferred some of that money to other organizations,
which we
similar
can
to what we saw from Turning Point Action?
Yep, and we can do that under donations.
Okay.
So you're right. We can take a deeper look at how the money was spent. Also on here, what do we see for date 5/13? So this aligns with the last one where they at least reviewed this on 5/13 and 5/12.
And the auditor 5/12 signed off on 5/12.
Yeah. So
Okay.
let's keep going. And is it this one? Yeah, we'll keep going. One of them has a description about a specific project, why they spent 7.8 million, and it might be this one. Let's see. Here we have the workers. So let's see what we got. And so this must be Tyler Boyer's main group because you see 30 at the top.
Yep.
Right. Remember, that's for this org. The 230 is for this org. And then the 100 is from the last org.
Right.
So what you can say is he makes 330 in total from Turning Point, right? Because it's 230 plus the 100.
Right.
And he works 50 hours a week, 30 from this group, 20 from the other.
Okay.
So let's keep going.
And these people make no money,
which is very common. Usually treasurer, view them as board members. You know how like private companies have board of directors?
Yep.
I think that's the best way to view.
Which would explain why it says only 1 hour for both.
Yeah, because they're not on the clock. Like
right. Okay.
In another video, maybe we'll show who those people are because that's kind of interesting too.
Okay.
But okay, so this might be a mistake, but remember we explained already what independent contractor means and what's on the first line.
Tyler Boyer.
But again, that could be a clerical error.
Well, it says 23604. Let's see what this number is up
it's
here.
It's the same. I checked.
It's the same. Yeah. So maybe that's it.
So that's why it's fair to say that could be a clerical error.
Well, okay. Could it be possible that the other numbers that we saw from like the one guy who is the communications director, but he's also listed as an independent contractor? Is it possible that maybe the number that we see under independent contractors could be a typo or maybe a mishap and it's just conflated numbers?
It could be, except in those cases, the numbers don't match, which is why here I'm willing to give Tyler the benefit because to me, he deserves it. That looks like a clerical error because the number's the same. But if the number is 800,000 for your, consulting company and your salary's 200,000,
then clearly
I don't feel like that's worth giving the benefit.
Yeah,
but it can. And then the other thing would be, how many clerical errors are we making? You should not be a vendor and an employee, right? Like you're an employee.
Right.
Just like in a private company. I don't fall into buckets at my day job. I'm in the bucket of I'm a salaried employee. I'm a W-2, right?
Right.
Because vendor is different.
Right. Let me see something. Because I'm looking at 110. So 110 is being paid $137,000 for this organization as well.
Yeah, and he's not on here. So to your point, could it be well, where is he then? We didn't see him on the employee list.
Right.
Right? He wasn't listed as a director of something making 137.
Which would mean that this would be solely an independent contracting job.
I'm going based on this because we don't see him we don't see that anywhere else. And in Tyler's case, to me, you've got to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yep.
It's the same number.
Same with Mosaic Event would have to be something separate. Yep.
Yeah. So, that's how that appears to me. And then we can keep going. Well, next thing we want to look for is America's Turn. So, it's not that big of a deal, but that thing I was saying, it was called Campus Victory Project. And if we can't find it, I'll just read it because I already wrote down exactly what it says.
Sure.
So in terms of how they're spending some of this money, it said 7.8 million on Campus Victory Project, empower young conservative leaders to help shape culture.
I'm seeing 7.8 here.
So there, yeah. But so somewhere within here, there's the description that I just read. I just don't remember where. That's all that is. It just gave a little more clarity to where that money's going.
Okay. So let's look at here. So 4.5 million in salaries and wages.
I mean, not that outrageous considering they have a bunch of employees.
Okay. So why isn't all the so when they file like this, they don't have to list all employees? Is that understood?
Yeah,
Okay.
They don't. Again, and I'm sounding like a broken record. If you get an annual report, a lot of these guys maybe don't list all, but you get a lot more. you know, in those annual reports on the website, you start to see employees that you don't see in these
Right.
things,
And
but that
this
I'm
is
aware of. No one has to do it.
right. Only $37,000 in travel for this one.
Also,
2.5.
occupancy is.
Go ahead.
Look at the occupancy in row 16.
$2,000.
Isn't that kind of weird compared to the other one?
Yeah. Information technology is 128, which is much lower. But even for this, I'm just interested on what 128,000 will go towards for this. You have 2.5 million for conference, conventions, and meetings. 2.5 million for conferences, conventions, and meetings for Americans Turning Point. Okay.
To me, it's not like outrageous, the expenses, but where it is outrageous is they're not left with any money. So when you go to their balance sheet, and balance sheet is, for those who don't know, it's just what shows your assets, right? Your cash, you know, what you have that's tangible. The end of year cash balance is 26,000. That's pretty tight.
Yeah.
Oh, it might be right here. Speaking of, what do you see right? Row 1, cash, beginning of the year, 31,000, end of year, just what I said, 26,000. It's just you're running really tight.
Yeah. Makes you wonder if that's by design.
To just spend the money.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
And then, we already saw 110, I think, right? The 137. Yeah, we saw that on independent. So again, that's that Jake Hoffman getting more. And according to my notes, this is actually it on America's Turning Point. But to be fair, we put this together really quick. So there could be other things in here that we didn't catch yet.
Okay.
I think we got the main stuff. And then we can do the endowment. I think the endowment's going to take a minute. Although maybe I missed something.
Let me see what it's called. Turning Point Endowment. So 1 sec. Okay. Turning Point Endowment is a supporting organization to Turning Point USA. The organization's mission is to support and benefit Turning Point USA's charitable purposes and long-term vitality.
And so right here, nothing. It's hard to read much into any of these because it's an endowment. You know, it's not like a real company, so to speak.
Right.
So you can kind of just skip through these just because I don't know what you can really get from other than assets. Boy, are they doing good with the investments. You see that? 69 million in assets. That's a lot.
Sheesh. 60 million, 61 million. Yeah. 69 total. Oh, right here.
Total. That's a lot.
What is there a way for us to see how much they started off with?
In my paper. In my paper, and the reason why I noted it was because the jump was insane. I hate to say it now, because I don't have the numbers in front of me. So please forgive me if I'm wrong, but it was something crazy. Like in 4 years, went from like 19 to like 70. Do you remember that when I was showing?
Yeah, I think it went up like something like 50 million. But what does this mean here? Beginning of current year 61, and then it shows 69. So
beginning of either their calendar year or fiscal year, and then at the end. So this can simply happen. And I'm making up an example, but let's say they're invested in NVIDIA stock. Well, NVIDIA has been going through the roof. So even if you didn't add money to it, the stock account would go up. So your assets would go up.
I see what you're saying.
And it's just so crazy. The other company that we're going to potentially look at, in one case, they even tell you what they're invested in. That's how transparent they are. Or they line item like, hey, we're invested in short-term treasuries. We're invested in bonds. We're invested in, you know what I mean? Like that's amazing transparency. And we don't get that. Oh yeah, so here they just explain it. Turning Point Endowment is a supporting organization to TPUSA, and so basically it's managing the money, maintaining investments that support long-term, like you said. So that all makes sense from that standpoint. And I think next we'll look at their expenses, and I'll show you what jumped out to me. So this is good. In Turning Point's defense, this is good. No one's getting paid. Which
we originally believed that Charlie and Tyler Boyer was.
Yeah,
but they're actually not.
No one is. So this is great to see from their side. So we can keep going.
Okay.
I want to show you something on the expenses that I can't figure out, and maybe you'll have a good explanation for. We're right here. So they were clear on what this group is. It manages the endowment. Then why do they have an occupancy? They told us they don't have employees. They told us they just manage the endowment, meaning there's probably a fund manager that does this. So
would the fund manager not be listed though? Shouldn't that person be listed?
Well, typically a fund manager would be like a Charles Schwab or Ameritrade, right? So like that's a portfolio manager, not an in-house fund manager. If they've hired an in-house fund manager, then they wouldn't show 0 employees. They would show 1. And the 1 employee would be who's managing the investments.
Right.
So based on that, and I'm assuming that this is outsourced. This is like a JP Morgan Chase, that type of fund manager. So I don't know where the 109 comes from. There could be a great explanation for it. I just can't think of it. Also, it's strange that the endowment has a higher occupancy than the last group we just looked at.
Yeah, that's right. They had like what, 20? What is it, 26?
It was under 5,000. So what would have made more sense is if the endowment was the 5,000 and the last group we looked at was 109,000 because they had employees. Everything else on here makes sense to me in terms of expenses. They're showing, depreciation because maybe their assets value went down, right? Who knows? So that's all fair game. It's just the occupancy jumps out to me.
Okay.
And then is it here? Oh yeah, and then
We've already saw this.
okay, so let's stop here for a second. So this is where they break out the securities for us. Think of security as just investments. So row 11 and row 12, you can see that they have about 62 million in 63 million, I guess, in investments. So said probably some kind of stock or bond portfolio. And nothing wrong with that. To me, it seems high because Turning Point is such a cash cow. Like, is there really going to be a year where all of a sudden they only got 10 million in revenue? So kind of what I'm trying to get at is if I'm a company where I have a lot of ebbs and flows, like maybe I can have a high year and then the next year I can have low, this would really come in handy. Because if my cash flow isn't consistent, I want to have a large endowment because on a bad year, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to sell the stock. That's my liquidity. That's where my money is held. But if you graph Turning Point's cash, all it does is up or flat. It's not down. And so I feel like if I were managing this account, I wouldn't feel it, man, you know what? We really need a huge nest of backup. We need 60 million. It just seems, I don't know. I mean,
a bit much.
Some of that can probably go to helping people, which I know, God forbid, but I mean, that could maybe be used elsewhere. Like, what would be wrong if they had 20 million in investments?
I was going to say to your point from your original audit video, if you're going to have $60 million, but you're going to be this organization that's public facing, as charitable and trying to change America and help Americans, and have this message, but you have $60 million in the bank, so to speak, right? It's endowed, but it's you know what I mean, like you're sitting on 60 million. It just sends a different message when you look into these numbers. That's putting it nicely.
And to be clear, it kind of is you're sitting on money in the bank because this is liquid. This is not illiquid, meaning one phone call, you have it in what, 2 business days? If it's in an investment account, like a stock, like I said, what if it's in NVIDIA? You just call your portfolio manager and he's going to sell it and move it to your company bank account. So worst case scenario, if all of a sudden your money dried up, you'll have it in 2 days.
All right.
So that is like sitting on, technically it's not cash, but I feel like it's liquid. I mean, I would love an explanation is all I can continue to say. That's it. Then that'll clear all this up. Like, what's the need for 60? Also, what would have been nice, maybe another video for context, show other nonprofits of this size. I've seen some 10 million,
and
20 million. Yeah, 30 million in investments. Now, I'm not saying they're the highest in history, not even close, but it's just, I've seen a lot bigger ones that have lower. And the reason why is because of what I said. If you have consistent cash flow, that's your money. If you're doing 80 million a year in revenue, you're doing 80 million a year. You're good. You're not worried about finances.
Yeah.
Oh, and then if we go down to the donations, you're going to see something interesting again. I think that was kind of toward the bottom after the fundraiser section. I'm going to let you explain this one to us because I don't have an answer for it. Yeah, a little more down. You can probably go faster. I'm pretty good at catching now.
Like this, okay.
That's the endowment. Yeah, it'll come up. I think it's after this. Oh, grants. You were just at it.
Right here.
Yep.
Okay.
Who'd they give a grant to?
All right. So they gave to Turning Point USA 1.2 million out of the endowment.
Yeah. Now here's why this one tricks me. Well, wasn't it the reverse?
Yeah, I was going to say why would endowment be giving? But okay, hold on. Let me explain it to you from the way I would imagine this. If in a way in which it wouldn't raise a red flag to me. If I saw Turning Point USA listed here as receiving $1.2 million from the endowment, but the purpose of the grant or the assistance was listed as a more granular reason, or was more specific than this generic thing that they've listed for everything else, then I wouldn't be suspicious because you tell us what this very specific number is for. It's a pretty high number, 1.2 million, but it's not. It's listed like anything else. So now I'm curious, why would the endowment be giving money to the Turning Point USA in the form of assistance when you're making all this money? It's not like you need the money. So that confuses me.
You're raising a great point. That's the first point you should raise. I'll give you an example of where this would have been 100% appropriate. The point of the endowment is to support TPUSA.
Right.
For example, if TPUSA is short on money, they're tapping into the endowment, right? That's how I would look at it. So that would be totally acceptable because, hey, you know what? This year, we didn't hit our target. We only got 60 million in donations. We need money. Perfect. That's why we have an endowment. Let's hit up the endowment. The endowment transfers 1.2 million to TPUSA and it served its purpose. it doesn't feel to me like TPUSA is in need of extra cash, does it?
No, not even a
No,
little bit, to say the
not
least.
so. Then we have to keep saying this is not nefarious. Well, maybe it is. This is not illegal. This is not something that anything, but it's more of why. That's
Yep.
all I'm doing on my end is why. I am not saying anything went down. And that we had an easy way we could have proven this. TP needed cash. This is what they tap into for cash.
Right.
Also, you made the great point because you still have it highlighted. Can they give a real explanation? They just copy and paste from one of the ones, and they just get like this would take 30 seconds to just write an explanation in there.
Right. And again, people, as a reminder, people are donating to these organizations. So this is 100% appropriate to be wanting to know down to the cents, to the dollar, how this money is being used, because the wrong person, and by the wrong person, I mean a donor, can look at this, could view this video, could view this document themselves, and they'll look at this 990 form and say, you almost make me believe I'm donating my money. You're placing it into your endowment. You're growing those dollars, and then you're taking those dollars back out and sending it back to yourself to use for whatever reason you want. And they don't understand. A lot of them won't understand how this stuff works. So wouldn't you want to clear that up for them to be able to see, since this is public information? When you want to just list that and be transparent so that they don't take the wrong idea away from this. And I feel like that's not a priority here.
No. And an easy way to do that, send your donors an annual report. Create a 50 to 100 page.
Put it on your website.
Put it on your website, send it to them via email and say, hey, you have questions? We've answered. Here's a 100-page report, and put one together.
Bingo.
I've gone through them. They are exhaustive and they're amazing because all this goes away. You get it in the annual report. It's really baffling. And the other reason you were making the point of like, hey, people are saying maybe we're going too far. Well, Blake Tilley didn't go this far. So we have to.
Right.
We're not the auditors, meaning like the technical auditors. So if auditors who are hired to audit aren't going to audit, we have to do it.
All right.
Because all the questions we're asking is just what an auditor would ask. I've done audits. I've been on the other side of audits. I mean, I've had an auditor audit my company. They ask these questions down to screenshots in the system. I don't know if you know that, how deep an audit goes. They sit over your back, literally, and say, go in the ERP system, take a screenshot from this expense. We have to see it. They sit over you. That's how intense these audits are from audits I've had to do.
Wow.
Yeah. So you are not going too far. It's the opposite. You're not going far enough
Right.
if you're not asking these questions. And that's all an audit is asking questions. It is not accusing anyone. We've said a million times, we believe in innocent until proven guilty. So it's questions. Questions don't mean guilt. Questions mean questions.
Right. For sure. Is that all for this one?
I'm going to double check my notes, but I believe so. And I don't know if you had any final questions now that because you haven't digested all of this yet.
Well, yeah.
What do you think?
I have final questions almost in a collective sense. And what I mean by that is I'm going to be thinking with the audience. Now that we reviewed the missing documents and it's been clarified and sort of confirmed with the paperwork that Charlie Kirk was receiving 2 salaries, not 3, not 4, somewhere in the ballpark of 300,000-400,000. Tyler Boyer is receiving 2 salaries as well. Our position is not that we were proving that anything illegal has taken place, but without a doubt, we can argue that there's not necessarily a lot of transparency about how these funds are being used. We do not fully understand why the endowments have to be so large. And like when you look at why refi, they're making these investments. My thing is these are a lot of numbers. And I just feel like when you're sending money to a PAC, donors should know what these dollars are being used for. And I would say prior to these, looking into these numbers, many people, let alone the donors, had no clue and probably was under the impression that these dollars was truly being used to try to change America. And I'm not so sure that's my takeaway after looking at these numbers.
I think there's no doubt the donors are under that impression because that's what they tell us, meaning the organization tells us. So why wouldn't you think that?
Right.
They don't say, oh, it's going to this LLC for this or all this money goes to that. Also, let us know in the comments because I just thought if anyone's interested in a future video, I created a spreadsheet and it's every transaction from the PAC down to the line level. I have every receipt. I did a full download. It took me a little bit to put together, but it's already made and it's every receipt going out the door and every receipt coming in the door from the PAC, that is, not from the nonprofits. And it's for, I think, 3 years. I think I did 20, 22, and 24, if I'm not mistaken, and the first half of 25.
Right. And the last thing I'd say is back to your original point. Why did it take so long? I'm curious about Was it because so much pressure was placed on them that they decided to go ahead and file it? Was it because something internal was taking place and they just wasn't able to do it back in May? I'm just wondering why 6 month gap. And conveniently enough, it was filed and now it's public after Charlie Kirk and after the whole Charlie Kirk Utah incident took place.
I'm going to play devil's advocate. This isn't a defense of them. It's a possibility. The
Yep.
government is insanely slow. What if Turning Point really did file on that date on their 990 and then the government uploaded it now?
And there's no, but it's not like there's proof of when they filed. At least not in the paperwork that we'd see, that we just got finished looking at.
Yeah, no, I mean, in theory, you would think they filed that day because they
Right.
dated it 5/14, you know. Now, I'm not accusing them, but I don't know. What if they backdated? What if they filed today and they just put that date on there? Like, how would you know? I'm not saying they did, and I need
Yeah,
to
no,
know
right.
because already before this gets clipped, I'm simply just saying to show you we don't know. Like, someone could do that in theory. I don't think that's likely. I tend to think it's possible because I know how slow the government is. That it could just be they filed on 5/14, they pushed it to the IRS, and the IRS just for whatever reason took forever. Maybe it got missed in the system. It is unusual because what we see in previous years, there's a trend. When does Turning Point's IRS file show up? Right, it was 5/15, 5/15, and so yeah, you don't know what to. But I just feel like, in fairness, this is a hard one to really rip them for because it's too unknown.
Right.
I just think there's no evidence to say they held on to it and they only did it. It is interesting timing, you have to admit, but how could we ever prove this? Therefore, it feels unfair to suggest they did anything when it comes to the filing.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, there is the coverage of the missing 990 forms. Hop in the comment section. Let us know what you all think. If this is what you thought, if there's anything that we missed. Brian, do you have any last words?
Oh, I definitely want to say that. No doubt I could have missed something because we did this on very short notice. It came out yesterday morning. And between having a day job, I looked on my lunch a little. Then last night I looked again on lunch today. So this is not my normal forensic exhaustive look. So if we miss something, I take no offense. Like, please show us, and then I'll cover that as well. It was just to get something out here, you know, for us. So there may be more. Who knows? You know, once I dig more, once someone else.
Heck yeah. Sounds good. Brian, as always, man, appreciate you. We'll see how the people receive it.
I hope good. Thank you very much.
All right.
Take care.
Oh yeah, Didi got a podcast.